Okay, ladles and jelly spoons, I think we're going to do this all over again. My name is Samuel Trapp. You are on International Flavor and damnradio.com. You can listen to us live at damnradio.com. I am on the show every weekday from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Missouri time. And whenever I see fit, I also do separate podcasts on my, you can find them at internationalflavor.podbean.com. I'm trying to do it at just International Flavor. I will update that soon, so it'll be just internationalflavor.com, and you can find all of my podcasts and materials there. You can find me by email at samuelt@internationalflavor.com. I enjoy speaking with people peaceably without insult. There's one guy in particular who keeps trying to get on my show, but all he does is insult. If you wish to insult, go somewhere else. Either positive or negative. You can say things, but don't insult people. Don't. You can't be calling people names and carrying on like that. Go do that with other people. I don't know what your problem is, but I don't accept it. Apparently none of the other hosts on Damn Radio do as well. You do this to everyone. I'm just the one who keeps giving you an opportunity to chat and I give people chances. I'm a reasonably nice guy. I don't mind talking to them. And, whatever your complaints are, keep them to yourself. I don't need them, okay? If you're not interested in the show, then don't listen to it, okay? Nobody's requiring your attendance is not required. And you are a no-go at this station. I'm going to relax a little bit. I've already put my feet up. I've put my camera on tracker. If you're following me on my International Flavor YouTube, nobody does. They do on my Russian side. The Russian ones I do. There are quite a few people. But the platform hasn't gone anywhere on the video side on YouTube yet. We'll see what happens when I add some more content, but it hasn't been on there long enough to do so. I'm trying to set it up where it automatically puts the podcast out there too. Anyway, none of those things are interesting to people to hear, but they are in the works of getting fixed. So if you have a chance, continue to listen to us, and we will improve some of the quality issues that we have with microphones. I'm doing it from other places, so it sometimes is a little bit less quality than the rest of our beautiful programs here on Damn Radio. Stick with me, please. These will be repaired. And so today, I'm going to tell you one more time about what happened, whether you listened to it the first time or not. It had microphone issues throughout because my microphone's been cutting off. So I'm going to redo it and tell you what I told you the other day, so that for your own listening pleasure. And that is, might have shut my phone off while I was doing it, so there might be people calling or texting in the meantime. So that tells you how gifted I am, and you may hear these other words that come in. I wanted to talk to you today one more time about the corrupt Missouri bar and the very, very corrupt client security fund. How can you call yourself a lawyer, members of the Missouri bar? How can you call yourself a lawyer? And I mean administration of the Missouri bar, not the whole bar, because the bar is forced mandatory attendance. You have to be a member of the bar, but you don't have to be one of those kiss asses that hang out with the administration. You don't have to honor the idiots that run the place with zero governmental authority, but they take it anyway, like a non-governmental U.S. Agency for International Development just on the Missouri side. And I'd be happy to argue with anybody about this anytime, because they couldn't look you in the face and argue with you. They'll be all too happy to go tell your daughter or anybody else who will listen how corrupt you are, or how criminal you are if you disagree with their position. But they can never justify their position. we're protecting the public. You're protecting your own hide and making a lot of money for yourself, just like everybody else who controls government. If you're a government lover, you'll love these a-holes, but they aren't even government. They are people who created their own little organization years and years ago. And those who control it understand exactly what they're doing. They are in charge of who gets admitted and who doesn't, who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. That's what they do. They determine. They've taken their own self-appointed roles with no government appointment authority from any source, zero source. They have nothing, okay? So the bar was created to manage lawyers, right? The bar is allegedly to manage lawyers, but it's self-governance in Missouri, self-governance. There's no oversight by anybody else. Remember, they're trying to do this all over the nation too, and they already have in 38 states. So the judiciary, the legal branch of government, has taken control of itself. It is the only one that gets to manage itself. There is zero oversight, at least in Missouri, okay? And I read to you the other day, and I want to read it again today, the differences between what we do and what some other states. There are still a few bastions of places that understand that the judiciary is out of control. And the judiciary is definitely out of control in Missouri. Because here, the judiciary doesn't even control the legal system. The bar controls itself. So why be a member of the Supreme Court if you can control the Supreme Court? How in the world does the Supreme Court subordinate itself to the bar? How is the Supreme Court so stupid? And I'd be happy to sit down with them as well, because they can't justify it either, but they don't have to. They're so lofty, so way up here, that they don't have to justify a damn thing. But they won't ever read the contradiction between the legal profession and every other profession in the state of Missouri, where they would never in a billion years allow what goes on in the legal profession in any other licensed profession. They would not allow it. They would never. I challenge anyone to give me any example of any system wherein without the right to defend yourself, without even the right to confront a witness, to appeal anything, to appear, to cross-examine a complainant, to do anything, they can assign you to pay money to someone based on a contract or not, in contravention of a contract 95% of the time, and unilaterally determine that that you have acted dishonestly or in an untrustworthy fashion. That is what is created in Missouri in an organization called the Client Security Fund. Now, I started by reading an article to you when I was on last time and had such problems with the audio that I really am just going to do it again so that it sounds better, and then I'll delete the old one and install this new one, because that first one was bad news and there was nobody that called in on that show anyway. And so it won't have any impact on that. I'll just tell you what I did. So I'm going to redo the entire show. And what I want to do is pull up the what the Client Security Fund is, and then tell you how it works or doesn't work, as the case may be, as the case truly is. But the procedure works wherein they get to the law firm that works for them is also a corrupt law firm. I mean, if let's call a couple of actors in there. It's a female attorney that works in that office that reported to my daughter I'll read you my son's affidavit here and tell you what it says and what his sister outlined to him, because it is complete horse pucky what they allowed to be done and what they get to say about me, and they don't even know me. And that part is distressing. If you want to get to know me and then claim that I don't know, I'm the Antichrist somehow after you get to know me, fine. That's what you get to base it on. But if you're going to listen to it based upon the words of others, screw you and the wild pony that you rode in on, and have have some decency, Missouri bar people, and you have none if you're a member of this very corrupt client security fund. And this client security fund, I could go on for days about this unlawful scenario. So when you lose this fund is designed to protect the public. That's what we say. We're going to protect the public, right? And these a-holes who run it just, are so in love with themselves that they just think, oh, well, we're protecting the public. What else is there to worry about? So what their job is, what they assign themselves to do, is to hear complaints from people who allege that their attorney dishonestly or fraudulently stole or misappropriated their money, okay, their property, fraudulently or dishonestly. Okay, if you fraudulently or dishonestly took someone's money, you should be investigated for that, but not by the Missouri Bar. You should be investigated by the Supreme Court of the state of Missouri and the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel. But this process, here's how they justify it. They say it's only to be used at or against dead, so a lawyer who dies has to go through this process because he can't defend himself. A lawyer who is incapacitated, insane, in a coma, whatever, you pick it, that he can no longer defend himself. Somebody like that doesn't have another someone in their firm. Now, in a big firm, this would never show up. Never in a billion years would it show up. Lawyers leave other firms all the time, right? So a lawyer leaves a firm. The rest in the firm, or a lawyer in a big firm, dies. I guarantee you they aren't sending letters to every one of his clients because the clients are the firm's clients, okay? And so I had a firm. At one point, I had like 6 attorneys working for me. 7, I don't remember. But I had a good amount of attorneys working for me. Every case in there was my case. But if I'm gone, why can't the rest of them carry on those cases? Okay, we had to shut down the firm. That's a different story altogether about a girl named Angela Sylvie and her criminal husband, who was a state rep for the maximum number of years and then a state senator for the maximum number of years, then got himself a gravy state position that he doesn't have to work, has 2 retirements plus this other shit job that he doesn't have to do anything in, or did have the last I heard. And those 2 robbed me blind. I'll bet you $1 million. Well, I don't have any. I'll bet you $1,000 that asshole has hanging in his office my numbered photo of the signing of the surrender between the Civil War generals Grant and Lee. I'll bet you anything. I bought it at a charity event. He tried to steal it once, and then she stole my entire office, including that painting. That's my friggin' painting. I guarantee you that asshole has it hanging somewhere in his house or somewhere. His name is Ryan Sylvie. Her name is Angela Sylvie. And they're both little criminals, state actors. And she especially. She robbed me blind and assisted the bar in doing all of these things. Encouraged my clients, former clients, that allegedly she was working with me to help resolve. She had them make complaints against me to this fund so that I couldn't come back and take my own painting back, or my entire office, which she basically stepped into and convinced the landlord to give to her. She's a crook. She's nothing but a crook. And I came back to do to take my office back in addition to my restaurant downstairs. And she was working with the police. She had the police come. She knew I was coming. I was coming to get my shit out of that office. I had a big truck all there. I wanted all of my desks, all of my furniture, everything in there I bought. And she stole it. All of it. A full office set of furniture, copy machine, desks, everything in there. Front office, everything. All mine. Leather sofa, leather, all kinds. And it's stuff. It's water under the bridge. But she just pocketed it all, including that photo, that painting of mine, which I'd love to get back, but they've stolen it. And it was a numbered painting, and I guarantee you that asshole has it hanging in his office somewhere. And it's maybe he's telling the story about how he stole it from that lawyer Trapp. I'll bet you anything he's telling that story. But the asshole's got that thing. At any rate, it's this. I got on a bit of a rant because I forgot all about how she stole that from me. But these are the type of people we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about people that are criminals, people that take the position of power and use it to their benefit, and they love that stuff. All of the people at the bar, I guarantee you, hell, she ran for judge twice up there in up there in Jefferson City. She ran for judge up there, and she's a crook. You shouldn't hire her. That's a little criminal, and she has no problem stealing other people's items, and he doesn't either. So that's okay. That type of behavior by an attorney will never be inspected or investigated by the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel. Certainly not by the a-holes Sam Phillips that runs that organization. They target people they want to take out. She loves the bar, loves the people that are part of the bar, and want to make sure that we protect the public from people like that Sam Trapp who steals things. Who steals from his clients. But he doesn't get to defend himself against the words that he has stolen from his clients. God forbid he should be able to defend himself. He doesn't get to. Why? Because we're the bar. And the bar gets to say who's good and who's bad, and gets to bring in a zero procedure with how it works. I want to read you first the affidavit of Andrew. Here's an affidavit of Andrew Trapp, my son, okay? And I submitted this to the court, trying to get them to listen to my position on this criminal entity of the Missouri bar and how bad it was. And here is the affidavit I submitted against the state of Missouri in federal court. And so this was written for my son. My son, this is what he signed. My name is Andrew Trapp. I'm an adult resident of the state of Wyoming. Samuel Trapp is my father. Nikki Rexroth is my sister, and William Trey Rexroth is my brother-in-law. Nikki and Trey wanted to meet with me to discuss filing suit. Nikki and Trey had me over to their home to discuss a meeting they had attended at their attorney's office to discuss filing suit. Nikki was very emotional and angry at Samuel Trapp for what she had heard during the meeting with the lawyer they wished to hire. Nikki and Trey related to me that the lawyer had stated that Samuel Trapp was not a good person, and that in fact Samuel Trapp was a thief. They told me that Nikki's lawyer, Nikki and Trey, said that Nikki's lawyer stated that Samuel Trapp had multiple cases in the Missouri bar against him for stealing money from his clients. Nikki and Trey told me that the lawyer stated that Samuel Trapp lost his license with the Missouri bar because of stealing from his clients and being an unethical person. None of which is true, by the way. I outlined in a previous show why I was suspended from the practice of law. It had nothing to do with either of those things. Nikki and Trey stated that the lawyer also told them that she could not believe that Samuel Trapp could have gotten a real estate license because he is unethical. So my argument has always been, how can I be ethical enough to get a broker license in the state of Missouri under the administrative codes of the state of Missouri, but I'm not ethical enough to get a law license because I'm unethical, allegedly, right? So how in the world can the state of Missouri say on the one hand that I am ethical and on the other hand that I am not? And these questions, so wouldn't that be res judicata? If you've already said that someone is one thing, you can't turn around the next day and say there's something else. And the state of Missouri has already stated that I'm an ethical person and I'm a broker in the state of Missouri. If I'm unethical, I should never have been able to become a broker. What's the difference between ethics of lawyers and brokers? Nobody has been able to tell me. It's the same standard in writing. You have to have they have to investigate you. But how in the world can they investigate you and find you ethical on the one hand and unethical on the next? The state of Florida has also investigated me, turned me into unethical. The U.S. Government investigated me years ago, admittedly, and said that I was eligible for the highest security clearance in the land when I was a diplomat working for the United States government, held that for 15 years, and was investigated multiple times during the end of it. I have a life. I have things that I've done that I'm a little bit of difference. I want to finish this thing, but this bullshit that a lawyer working for a firm gets to say what I did is just nonsense. And that they get to tell my daughter that they stole how I would do it. The Rexroads told me that the lawyer stated that she did work with the Missouri Real Estate Commission also, and that she was going to look into how it was possible that Samuel Trapp could even get his real estate license when he was not able to get his license with the Missouri Bar. So the law firm understands the ethical dilemma this puts them in. How can you claim that Sam is unethical when he's ethical? That doesn't make sense. And since I represent both the Missouri Bar, this genius lawyer said, since I represent both the Missouri Bar and the Real Estate Commission, maybe I'll take care of him at the Real Estate Commission too. Little criminal, right? Nikki and Trey informed me that the lawyer stated she was going to look in attempting to get Samuel Trapp's real estate license removed. I haven't been notified of anything about that yet, so apparently she hasn't gotten around to it. Nikki told me that, this is my son, that the lawyer even showed them a list of cases pertaining to Samuel Trapp stealing money from clients in a case with the Missouri Bar. So she revealed secrets of a case with the Missouri Bar to an outside third party, which you cannot do. Now that is unethical, but by God, nobody will ever investigate her because she's the one that approves such investigations, right? Nonsense. These people are all criminals. Nikki and Trey told me that seeing these things showed them, that Samuel Trapp was not a good person, and said her belief that he would steal money from that many people, he would steal her property from her as well. We discussed how I thought they should talk to Samuel Trapp because I don't believe that he lost his license for stealing from clients. That's my son. That is my son's affidavit, okay? And what he said, okay? At the time, and what this law firm said about my son, or said about me to my daughter. This is the people that represent the Missouri Bar, okay? And it is nonsense what they allow to occur. And I don't know. Talk about unethical. That you want some unethical behavior, try that. But oh no, we can keep Samuel Trapp out without explaining a word. They don't have to say yes or no, and they never did say yes or no as to, well, they said no, he cannot be an attorney, but they don't outline why. Again, only profession in Missouri where this is allowed. The only profession. You are not allowed to know. You don't get to know the reason that they come to this determination that you are not allowed to be an attorney. Nobody says why. It's just, well, the overall view, no, we say no, period. You don't get it. If they did that to you as, let's say you were black. Let's say I was black and they said no to me for the practice of law. 9 Supreme Court judges sitting there saying how, whether or not I'm ethical, and all of them, one word, no. That's it. Not one judge who said, well, I say no, but I say no because he's black. I'm a racist and I don't like him. Another judge says no. Well, I say no because, I don't know, he, was a evil perverter of innocent little boys in his youth. And I say no because of that. Well, don't I get to know that? Don't I get to defend against the fact that I'm black? Don't I get to defend against the fact that I really wasn't an evil perverter of innocent little boys? How do you know what to defend yourself against if the answer is just no? And the answer in Missouri is no, period. Whether or not I pay this fund back or not. Now they say that if I pay the fund, they will allow me to submit an application, but I can't even submit an application till I pay the fund. But that's not in any rule. So even though you comply with all the rules in the state of Missouri, you can't even apply until the Missouri bar says you can. And you're not, the Missouri bar is the only ones that get to investigate, but they don't even get to investigate. They're not given any authority to do so by the Supreme Court of Missouri. Nothing like that. And so I'm going to tell you about, and I hate to throw him under the bus, but he's a really great guy, no matter how you slice it. He's been around a long time. I consider him a very strong acquaintance, hopefully friend. I think very positively of him, but he may not like the fact that I'm putting this out as well. And so there's other people who have given me information. His is already public record. There's other people that have given me recommendations and affidavits, but they've asked me not to disclose that they have because they don't want troubles for themselves. I understand that. And so I committed that I wouldn't tell the people that gave me such affidavits that or letters of recommendation that I would disclose them, and I won't. But there are people who've given me letters of recommend that I can use for application purposes to get into a different bar or when I come back to the bar in the state of Missouri or whatever. I haven't done that yet, but I have them. And so those people I won't disclose. But here's the guy who attempted to get in to these hearings to represent me against the state of Missouri. And here's what he had to say. And here, my name is David Bandre. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Missouri, having Missouri bar number 44812. I served as legal counsel for Samuel Trapp in case number SC 95445 before the Missouri Supreme Court. Said case was a formal request for reinstatement of Mr. Trapp's license to practice law in the state of Missouri. One of the roadblocks to Mr. Trapp's reinstatement was the demand of the Chief Disciplinary Counsel and ultimately the Supreme Court itself that Mr. Trapp reimburse the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund, which was purported to have paid out $69,000 to former clients of Mr. Trapp as compensation or reimbursement for funds deemed owed to them as a result of Mr. Trapp's alleged actions or inactions. Now, what he didn't point out is that the only way they can do that is if they claim that I stole or defrauded them, or I had to do something criminal to keep the money. I had to do something illegal, something unethical, something immoral, something criminal, those things. It has to be a bad sort of taking. It cannot be just a fee dispute, or this committee has no authority, and none. And so they go out and solicit people to come and say things negative against you, but they won't say them in public. They only say them in this little club. We'll get to those rules in a minute. The vast majority of funds paid out by the Missouri Bar, this is David, by the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund were paid during the pendency of case number Supreme Court 95445. Both Mr. Trapp individually and my office made repeated attempts to be allowed to appear before either the committee which made determinations concerning payment from the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund and the Missouri Bar Board of Governors, who ultimately approved such payments. On each such occasion, Mr. Trapp and my office were allowed to submit a written summary for consideration, but were informed by representatives of the Missouri Bar that we were not allowed to participate in any hearings, despite the former clients of Mr. Trapp being allowed to appear in person. In my legal opinion, Mr. Trapp had valid defenses to at least some of the claims made to the committee, and his testimony or my legal arguments may have prevented a portion or at least a portion of the expended funds from being paid out by the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund. Neither Mr. Trapp nor my office were given notice of any right of appeal or recourse concerning the determination of the Missouri Bar Board of Governors to authorize payments from the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund to former clients of Mr. Trapp. I remain unaware of any such right of appeal was to have been made available. Reinstatement of Mr. Trapp's license to practice law was and remains contingent upon his repayment of funds paid out to former clients from the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund, as well as other conditions established by the Missouri Supreme Court. There weren't any other conditions. That's just the rule he's talking about in the end. So I got to pay this money back and then comply with the rule. But if I apply with the rule and don't pay the money back, which is nowhere in the Missouri Supreme Court rules, they don't have to give me my license back. They can reject it for some other reason. It's nonsensical, the logic that they put together here that, oh, by the way, friends and neighbors, Mr. Trapp, sorry, here, I got to check something. Friends and neighbors, Mr. Trapp has to pay this money, but even if he does, we still don't have to let him in. So basically, it's not contingent upon my payment. It's I have to pay and then pray that they'll let me in. They won't. I don't trust those guys. They're a bunch of liars and thieves. And anybody that will approve a process where you can make complaints against someone, come and have your own individual hearing with only one side represented, having heard about them or not, what David wouldn't say when we talked about this, because he wasn't involved at that time, is that many of these claims were already resolved while I was in Qatar, right? And I never got notice of these. They were sent to my old office. To who? Angela Silvey. And so Angela Silvey, I never got them. When I found out about them, a lot of them had already been paid. And so I started requesting, and they sent me a huge email with all of these in there. I remember it. It was about a month before I came back from Qatar, and I was getting ready to come back, and I was going to apply for my license, and I was doing all the things necessary to make sure that occurred. And still completely unaware. I thought, the year-long would be done. I'd apply, I'd get my license back because, geez, we have people who go to prison and come back and apply for their license, they get it back. But no, not if you're Mr. Trapp, who just failed to cooperate with the Missouri Bar, as I told in that story. I failed to cooperate with the Missouri Bar. There are 2 counts of that. I had a potential of intermingled funds, which nobody could ever show that I just misplaced client money, did anything improper within client property, nothing like that, 0. And but there was a potential because I couldn't prove every transaction on every day. Bad administrative procedure in my office. That, guilty as charged. And non-cooperation, they wanted me to say what was the reason for these, to create records that didn't exist 2 or 3 years later, and I wouldn't do it. So they called that not cooperating because I didn't have the records. And I said, well, I can't give you records I don't have, and I'm not going to create them or guess. And they wanted me to guess and say what it was, and I wouldn't do it. So that is not cooperation. Because why? Because Sam Phillips asked for something and I wouldn't give it to him. I wouldn't just go create it. And I had a lawyer at that time. The lawyer told him the same thing, but he insisted upon it. And at the hearing, nobody even asked any questions about it. They just said, he's guilty of this. And the last one was alleged non-communication with a client who I chased down for 3 months. They chose to agree with her position and not mine. And okay, fine. I rolled the dice and I took it. But those are the 4 things. 2 times I allegedly failed to communicate. Cooperate with the bar. 1 time I allegedly failed to communicate with a client. And the 3rd one that I potentially intermingled my funds because I couldn't track where they were on a particular day. Those are the reasons why my license was suspended, and that's all. They tried to claim that I stole my client's home, but I didn't. I stole his mother's home. Well, I didn't steal it, but she guaranteed it for payment. So I took title to it, never moved in, never touched it, never went to it, never even saw it, and just told her when she paid me off, I'd give her the title back. But I was changing it because I represented her son for a couple and a half years, and that's how I got paid. Every lawyer not every lawyer, but every lawyer will tell you that it's perfectly legal to have someone guarantee a property as payment of your fee if it's not your client. And she was not my client. And so she made a complaint to the Missouri bar on behalf of her son, who thought I did a great job for him. And that is how the entire saga of Samuel Trapp took place. Now, as I pointed out before, Greg Williams on the other side of the lake, he did the exact same thing, only he really took the client's property. He took the client's property. And he got put, nobody put him in front of the Supreme Court, not this way anyway. And they came to some kind of arrangement for him to allow him to keep his license and continue working. That's what they allowed for him. And he really did take his client's property. And, I sued him for it. And you can check that out. In fact, that could be why the Missouri bar started coming after me, because I said, they called me to tell me what he had done and how he had done it, and I was not party to that action. And they tried to say, well, you're a lawyer, you have to help us go after him. No, I don't. That's your job. If I knew something about him, fine, but that doesn't mean you call me, tell me bad things about him, and then say, help us go after him and get more information, because you already have a lawsuit against him. Screw that. That's criminal. I don't like it. It's unethical. I do not like it, and I did not agree to it, and I would not do it. So I believe, and that was before they started coming after me double barrel, and I believe that had something to do with it. So personally, on a personal level, I think that had something to do with why they came after me. So I've given you affidavits from my son and from David Bandre. And I read to you the other day an article that is called Righting Client Wrongs. And since you couldn't hear it correctly, I'm going to do it again. This is an article written by a guy named Gary Toohey. This tells you how this ridiculous procedure works in the state of Missouri. You can't call it unconstitutional. You can just call it, why don't they have a club like this for doctors? So a little club, a committee that gets together, you get to pick pick any other profession. Start with, barbers. Let's have a committee of barbers. A committee of barbers that has their own separate Missouri Barbers Association, and you have to be a Missouri Barber member in order to have a license to be a barber. Okay? And then let's say that the state gives these barbers, this committee of barbers, the right to adjust or to attack other barbers as they see fit. Okay? A little committee. So the main barbers that hold this committee, and these barbers have to pay to fund this committee every year. They have to pay, call it $1,000 a year to fund the barber committee. So the barber committee is what? They're protecting the public. This committee of barbers gets to get together on alleged authority, which really isn't authority. They've kind of generated for themselves. No legislative, no judicial, no executive power has ever been given, but it seems that barbers ought to be able to regulate themselves, don't you think? barbers know whether other barbers are good barbers or not, or whether they're damaging, the faith that barbers are going to be, very well taken care of. And let's even go further and take it with any position you want. You can go, well, barbers aren't the same as lawyers. Okay, real estate brokers hold money. Mortgage brokers hold money of clients. Any accountants, CPAs hold money from other clients. Do they have their own group? Do they have their own authority? Do they have their own little group only of CPAs, only of real estate brokers, only of mortgage brokers that hold client money, that hold it and decide where it goes, of title companies? Title companies hold a lot of money that when they transfer homes. Is there a group of title company executives or title company license holders that gets to get together? No state authority, no executive power, no legislative power, no judicial power. Like the Missouri Bar, has none of the above. They have none. Hasn't been granted to them. Zero. And so they get to, let's say that any of these people, and keep that in mind as I tell you what this committee does. I told you a couple of weeks ago about how Supreme Court judges and now regular judges in more and more places are abdicating responsibility for appointing judges and giving it all to a bar-funded committee, a bar-organized committee with 3 lawyers, or 2 if it's a smaller community, 2 citizens appointed by the governor, and the Chief Justice of the state of Missouri in the event of appellate court and Supreme Court discussions, and a local regional committee, head for the other. But 3 lawyers, 2 citizens. Who do you think is going to say these people are good to these people? But is it going to be the citizens or is it going to be the 3 lawyers? That's how they pick judges. Well, these same committees on a smaller scale, but basically the same concept, appointed by the bar. The bar is the most powerful organization in the state of Missouri, period. There's no dispute. You can't dispute that fact, right? And so I'm going to tell you about this nonsensical client security fund, and here's the feature article. They started taking more and more power over the last 10, 12 years. Before that, it was rarely used, but they figured out how to use it against people like me, and it has exploded in the past years where they get to use this. Now, I compared for you how it's done in Wyoming and Florida, other states, by reading theirs. Theirs is in California's is by by legislative authority. Florida's, I believe, is legislative authority, that these sort of funds are codified in law. And in Wyoming, it's codified in rules written by the Supreme Court. Nope. Here they write their own rules in the bar in Missouri. It's only this funded group. And who's going to come against them? Nobody. Samuel Trapp did, but he got his ass handed to him. And who's going to listen? Because we're protecting the public, right? But why aren't CPAs protecting the public? Why don't we let them attack other, have a fund that they get to send out every time a CPA dies, every time a CPA loses his license, that this committee, this self-appointed committee gets to go out and investigate any client of that person who lost his license, any realtor who lost their license, a title company holder who loses a license, that you get to go out and inspect. No, that's done by an executive branch employee. That's done by a police organization that gets to do that. Then a prosecutor gets to see whether they've committed any crime. The only place this is allowed, is against lawyers, okay? And it's only used to keep them out of the practice of law, not allow them back in. That's the only it's not used for criminal purposes. If I defrauded people out of their money, or if I stole their money, why am I not under criminal charges? Why don't you bring them up and say, hey, why am I not under ethical charges? I'm not even under ethical charges. Nothing. They can't be used for any other purpose except to give these people money back and then make me pay it back to them. Why? Somebody justify that to me. Because if I disagree in Wyoming, there's a procedure. In Florida, there's a procedure. that you get to have a lawyer, you get to have hearings, you get to have all these things and participate in the full realm of taking care of yourself. Why? Because in other states they recognize that it's bullshit to accuse somebody of something and not even give him the right to defend himself. To claim that somebody owes money or that could potentially end up in a fine or a fee or something that he has to pay back and then not give him the right to defend against it. That's just un-American. we don't agree with that in America, do we? I sure as hell don't. I don't believe it, and I don't appreciate being the subject of that. Now, I've spoken to some more attorneys since then. It'd be real nice if I could get one online, and maybe I will. I'll try to find the email and see if the guy will interview me, and maybe we can tell his story as well. Maybe I can be the story for defrocked lawyers that they chase down and try to destroy for good, like they did with me. I mean, my tax returns look ridiculous. I haven't had to pay any tax. I don't make any money. You know, I haven't had to, how I've survived. You got me. I've lost money most years that my income is so small it doesn't friggin' matter how I survive. You know, and I am a real estate broker and a real estate agent, but I don't do all that many transactions. Very few, in fact. And most of the time I've spent working for other people, you know, and trying to make a little bit of money on the side here and there, doing things of that nature, you know, flipping houses or whatever. And I do some of the management of crews or whatnot for very little money, or exchange of rent or whatever. You know, it's a totally different world when you're not on top of it. Let's put it that way. It's a total different world. And I'm not you know, bitching. Don't feel sorry for me, nothing like that, you know. But that doesn't mean I'm going to bend over and take it up the butt. I have had the money on 2 occasions to pay the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund, but I will not do it. I will never do it. And I won't do it, certainly without the guarantee that I'll get my license back. I won't do it on, oh, gee, Mr. Trapp, why don't you pay us? And then have them pull the football out. You know, they're Lucy and I'm Charlie Brown, and they pull the football underneath me and go, oh, well, our laws don't say that you have to get your license back, and we think that you took so long to give us this money back that you're you're a person without integrity. You got no integrity. Well, I say that you, Client Security Fund a-holes, and you, Missouri Supreme Court, for not paying attention, and definitely Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel for instigating these sorts of things against people on a exclusionary basis. You only pick it against people that you hate. Sam Phillips, you know, Sam Trapp, I'm going to destroy you. You will never practice law in the state of Missouri again. And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about? These are minor infractions that we need to correct. Let's fix them. But he knew what he was going to do then. But nobody will let me come after him for that. Why? He's protecting the public. Bull nonsense. Exactly what they're doing to Ike Skelton right now, trying to destroy him and take him down. That's what they did to me. They saw me as a threat, and they came after me because I was outspoken. I was against bad actors in government, which are everywhere, but it was unpopular 10 years ago. You know, it's very popular to go after these a-holes now. And so maybe it's a little easier for me, but I've still gone after them in my own way for 12, 15 years. Certainly to my own detriment, certainly. I wasn't rich, but I was very, very comfortable, let's put it that way, when I was practicing law. And I struggled just like everybody else that owns their own business and has to go through it. But they never attack big law firms, never. They'd never get away with it. You know, 10, 12 lawyers, good luck. Any firm that has 4 to 10 lawyers, they're not going to be able to get them. But they'll come after a solo practitioner for sure. Why? We're easy pickings. And when you lose, you lose. And especially if you got people targeting you to steal your office, Angela Sylvie and her husband Ryan, little criminals. You have people who have no interest in you coming back. Jay Nixon, state of Missouri, you know, a very powerful bar. Who knows how this all got started? But this all got started long ago. And they needed to shut me up
And how do you do it? You take away his license because nobody's going to listen to him after his license is gone. And, well, for years I've let that go. But I don't care if you listen or not. That doesn't mean I'm not going to tell my story about these corrupt, unbelievably corrupt people who would never in a million years, Jay Nixon put him on for his son practices law. Let's say that his little boy who was practicing law had the exact same thing come down. You think that Jay Nixon couldn't make a phone call and fix that even today? Jay Nixon could fix that even today if his son ever was presented with a similar organization. Anybody in a state of power can do that. Not so with Samuel Trapp. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have anybody in my corner. I was just a guy doing what he thought was the right thing to do. Sued the government quite a few times, sued individual police officers, sued criminal organizations that went after guards that raped women in jail or had sex with them in jail. Not allowed, but you can always blame that on the girl who, well, that was prostitution. She gets cigarettes for giving him a blowjob. We blame her, not him. He's just a not a very intelligent man, and he didn't know any better. But that girl, boy, she targeted him, and she knew if she could sell her vagina to him for some cigarettes. We blame her, not him. And that's how defense lawyers think. That's how the world thinks. And many times that's how the jury thinks, because they're so ingrained that the cops are the good guys that even if you're a guard screwing a bunch of women in jail or giving positions of authority and positions of payment to women in jail, that's on the woman for you having sex with her. She's a person certainly in an incapacitated state. She has no rights. What if it really is true that he came in and demanded it and then in return said, well, here you go, have a pack of cigarettes? Does that make it different? Would you sell your vagina for a pack of smokes? Maybe in prison, but nowhere else. But does that make it okay? Never. Who's in the superior position? The girl with the vagina or the officer with the pack of smokes and all the power? Who's in a superior position? And should you defend those people? Should you fight for those people or no? Good question. You can talk about that in the commentary if you'd like. Because you can see this on YouTube. I'm going to put it on YouTube as well. But this is going to be my show for Monday, the 10th of March, 2025, because I am going to be out of pocket, and I wanted to redo that show in a quiet room and on video. I want you to be able to watch this nonsense if you'd like to. So you can go to International Flavor English on YouTube and sign up for that channel. Very few people do, because this is my radio program, and most of the time it's all in Russian, and I get spread out a little bit. But if you get on there and you see the video, share it among lawyers. Every lawyer in the state of Missouri should hear this video and see what it is, because these people are corrupt. And, I'll name them here on who the Client Security Fund people, because they know better. These are not stupid lawyers. These are people who probably got their, are probably moved up the chain, got the next, next level, next rung of authority on the bar hierarchy. Maybe they got judge jobs. Maybe they got appointed somewhere in the bar to be on another committee and do some other things. Who knows? We could investigate each one of them, but I'll name them here in a little bit in the lawsuit. But I want to go through this Client Security Fund and how it works. And this guy, Tui, wrote this article in 2011, and I told you about it a little bit the other day, but the quality was bad, so I'm probably going to delete that one, and here it is. But here's how it goes. For 45 years, the Missouri Bar's Client Security Fund has helped maintain the professional reputation of Missouri lawyers by compensating clients financially harmed by the actions of their attorneys. Okay? As a result of this service, this is the important part, hundreds of clients have had their faith in the legal system, legal profession restored. Right? Because what's important? Your faith in the legal system. Don't have any faith in the legal system. These people are criminal themselves. They'd never allow this to happen to themselves. Never would they support this. Never, if it happened to them. Or Jay Nixon wouldn't support this if his son was subjected to it. You know, I tell you what, from their procedure, what they do when you lose your license, when you die, when you're incapacitated, these jokers send out letters to all of your former clients and say, if you have a complaint against your lawyer that fits into this category where he took your money dishonestly or fraudulently, we can give it back. Well, do you think that's going to encourage somebody who paid you $25,000 over a 3-year period to come and say, he took my $25,000 fraudulently or dishonestly? Tell you what, it's worth a shot. Why not? If I come in and say, Sam took my money dishonestly or fraudulently, and this idiot fund, without consulting Sam, gives it back, well, what do I have nothing to complain about. And so what if I have to say that Sam took? So if that's all I got to do, trust me, if all I got to do is speak poorly of a person, and you're going to pay me $25,000, there you go. There, 90% of the people out on the planet would do it, depending on the amount of the money. You tell me $100, I got to say somebody's bad news. You're going to give me $1 million? I'll do it. Why not? You give me $1 million. I don't know if I'd sell myself out for $25,000 like former clients did, but I had several of them. The biggest ones, the first one got like 24,000 or something, and the next one got 15,000. But the 25,000 still owed me 20,000, and the 15,000 still owed me like 13,000, something like that. They owed me money. That's the funny part. Contract, be damned. They didn't admit the contract as evidence because they never asked me. They just gave them the money, right? And I didn't even get to participate. And it was nonsense. I found out about it when I returned from Qatar, where I'd been for 1.5 years. And these things were hidden from me by who? Angela Silvey, who received the mail and never passed it on to me. Nonsense, folks. Nonsense. This is a bullshit process. And it was used to keep Sam Trapp from being able to reapply by Sam Phillips, who was deeply involved in all this. He's the one that sent out the letters to the clients telling them that here's what you have to do and here's how you do it. But if I'm dishonest or fraudulent, Sam Phillips, why didn't you investigate me as a result of any of these complaints? And force me to say that force the Supreme Court to find that I am fraudulent or dishonest. Not some group of people in a Missouri bar who are just trying to do good and restore the faith restore people's faith in the legal profession, right? That's the important thing. By virtue, this is the article continues, by virtue of their oath of admission to the bar, lawyers are expected to adhere to a strict code of ethical conduct. But fear not, and this is not part of this, is Sam, but fear not, if they don't, we have a group of self-appointed people in the Missouri bar who get to investigate, have their own witch hunt hearings all by themselves, and then determine that Samuel Trapp is unethical or fraudulently behaved and stole people's money. Then report it to his daughter and to the Supreme Court of Missouri that this guy's a criminal, but he didn't get to defend himself, and he dishonestly or fraudulently took the money. Well, if there's a finding of dishonesty and fraud, don't you think I should be able to defend myself against that? Never granted that opportunity, and all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they won't look into it because the bar regulates itself. Friends and neighbors, remember when we started this whole deal, the only branch of government, remember the supremacy clause of the Constitution, according to the court, means that they get to regulate themselves, and this regulation of themselves can destroy other people. This is BS. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that they get to regulate themselves, but at some point they've taken this self-regulatory tack. Now, most states don't see it that way. Most states still allow, they may have it by rule. Some states have it by rule. Wyoming's is by rule of the Supreme Court, but at least it's a rule. In Missouri, there ain't even a rule. It's just the Missouri bar doing whatever it wants. And I'm sorry if the camera's shaking. I have my feet up on the table, and sometimes it's moving a little bit while I chat. Anyway, if you're listening on the radio, of course you don't know that. But you can see this entire video on my YouTube channel where it will be uploaded for your convenience. And here's what it says. They try to claim some sort of rule, right? But there's not one. No rule in the Supreme Court of Missouri addresses anything having to do with the client security fund. Not one, okay? Unless they've changed it and I'm unaware of it, but no, not one. Wasn't any up until the last time I looked at it was 2021, 2022, and certainly wasn't back in 2011, right? When they started investigating me. The preamble of Missouri Supreme Court Rule 4, and by the way, a preamble is nothing but a preamble. It's not a rule. The Rules of Professional Conduct, Supreme Court Rule 4, lays the groundwork for the profession's obligation. The profession is obligated. The profession is, right? Not the state of Missouri. The profession itself is obligated, according to this yahoo, to protect clients from harm. Okay? While noting that lawyers must be guided by personal conscience and approbation of professional peers, the preamble states, virtually all difficult ethical problems arise from conflict between a lawyer's responsibility to clients, to the legal system, and to the lawyer's own interest in remaining an ethical person while earning a satisfactory living. The rules of professional conduct often prescribe terms for resolving such conflicts between any of those three. Within the framework of these rules, however, many difficult issues of professional discretion can arise. True. Such issues must be resolved through the exercise of what? Sensitive professional and moral judgment guided by these basic principles underlying the rules. Okay? So no rule involving this. We just have these, I don't know, self-appointed people that get to regulate the rest of the lawyers in the state. These principles include the lawyer's obligation zealously to protect and pursue a client's legitimate interest. Nobody ever claimed that I didn't zealously protect my clients, including those who had complained against me. And then the article continues. That's the preamble, but now the article. When lawyers fail to meet this standard of conduct and cause financial harm to a client, remember who has a duty here. The profession has a duty to respond, says Poplar Bluff attorney Scott Robbins, the chair of the Client Security Fund Committee at that time, that oversees this service. It is certainly, the conduct of such lawyers is certainly not conduct we expect from a Missouri licensed attorney. What conduct? How about the conduct of attacking a lawyer and not giving the right to defend himself in a hearing where you interview everyone against him, but he doesn't have a right to defend himself? Scott Robbins. You don't talk about that part in this entire article, he explained. That is something we tell everyone who makes a claim. Everyone who makes a claim receives these words. Here they are. We apologize for the conduct of the attorney that gave rise to the claim because his conduct, it says it, is not the standard of conduct we would uphold and certainly not something the vast majority of Missouri attorneys would ever think of doing. They still haven't said what it is. Just, somebody, a lawyer, if you have to make a complaint, that's already bad enough, right? You have to make a complaint. In much the same way, but not the same way, in much the same way that a verdict from a jury of one's peers. So now they're equating it to a civil jury or a criminal jury, a jury of somebody's peers that represents the collective judgment of society. It could be said, it isn't said, but it could be said, it's only said by idiots like this. It could be said that the work of the Client Security Fund, funded by an annual allocation from the Missouri Bar budget, by the Missouri Bar, if you're, a good guy in the Missouri Bar, and you support fully their idiocy and their lack of protection of the rights of others, carries with it the professional expectations of the members of the bar. So basically, if this committee says something, the entire bar says something, right? Well, in that case, I accuse the entire bar of corruption. They're corrupt because they allow such things to happen against their own members without any right to defend yourself. If the entire bar voted and read all these things and had a reasonable procedure where I was entitled to defend myself, I wouldn't complain. If there was a rule that the Supreme Court had written that said, here's this fund, if somebody makes a complaint, here's what it is procedurally, here's how it works. The lawyer gets the right to defend himself. The lawyer gets full notice. The lawyer has to be present, can interview the prior client, can defend himself. All of same stuff that it would appear in a civil trial or a criminal trial. You want to claim that this committee is now the jury of my peers when it isn't, when they don't even have a full hearing, then I would say, okay, I get this. I can understand. Even if there's something slightly less than some procedural protection. Give me some way to defend myself. Let me especially present every document in my file. Let me counter, cross-examine every witness that has brought something against me. The same. You want to call yourself client security fund a jury of my peers without even a hearing. Number one, you're not a jury. Number two, there was no hearing. Number three, I don't get to participate and I have no right to protect myself. And you know better because you're lawyers. Would you the simple question is, would you allow yourself to give a committee like this and send a letter to every former client? Because in other states, they allow these sorts of funds against active attorneys, not just against those who aren't. And by the way, I can understand this for dead attorneys, for incapacitated attorneys, for attorneys in a coma that didn't have 10 other attorneys in their office to pick up the slack and take over these cases. I could understand that. That if you have a complaint, maybe we should have a procedure for that. But even then, I say that the estate of the deceased attorney, the people who represent the interests of the incapacitated attorney, his family, might, what if it's a guy who's only temporarily incapacitated? He's in a coma for 5 or 6 years, and he comes out and has to pay back all this money to get it to figure out what it is because you wanted to make the public feel good about the practice of law with zero procedure, and his family didn't get to hire an attorney. No attorney was present, and none of you. And if you are, you're an idiot attorney. None of you would allow yourself or anyone you loved that at some point had a license and died or was incapacitated, or God forbid even lost their license by a suspension that justified or not, that could come in there. You would never ever in a million years. And if you want to get on and argue that point, oh yeah, I'd do it. You'll look like an idiot because you know you wouldn't. But those people, I invite you, bring on the head of the Missouri bar. Let's talk to him. You know what? In fact, I think I might this week call and talk to the head of the Missouri bar about this and having somebody on to discuss the fund on damn radio. Maybe we should do that. I think I might. That's a good idea. But let's finish my topic on this because I only got about 20 minutes left of the show, and then we have to move on. So here's what the Client Security Fund says in Rule 4.12. The legal profession's relative autonomy, complete autonomy, because nobody regulates it. Not the legislature, not the executive branch. They have no part. It's only the judiciary. We regulate ourselves, right? The legal profession's relative autonomy carries with it special responsibilities of self-government. So basically, I'm supposed to bow down and go, oh, geez, guys, this makes sense to me. Sounds like you guys are just the good ones. I'm not supposed to complain about procedure. I'm not supposed to complain about process. I'm not supposed to claim that there's no rule, law, statute, ordinance, administrative order, anything that gives the right to this committee except themselves. They created this for themselves. And this is their process. No governance by the Supreme Court of Missouri. No governance by anything except this committee of the bar, who, by the way, is the same people that appoint judges, right? Nonsense. The whole thing needs to be torn down. And anybody who wants to come on and argue with me, they never will. We'll invite them. In fact, I'll write them a very nice letter and invite them on the damn radio with me and say, let's create something out of this, because it's a BS system, okay? Anyway, the legal profession's autonomy gives it a special responsibility of self-government. Nobody else can tell a lawyer what to do, right? The profession has a responsibility to assure that its regulations, this is not a bar, this is not a regulation that anybody knows about. The only thing that regulates a lawyer's practice of law is the Supreme Court of Missouri through the rules. These are not regulations. This client security fund is not a regulation of the state of Missouri. To create a regulation, you have to do it legislatively, and this regulation, or administratively, where they create these rules, and then there's time to make comment, review and comment. Not so in the bar. They just do it all on their own, and nobody oversees it. Even the Supreme Court of the state of Missouri, they don't oversee this. They make their own procedures. They can change them at any time they see fit. Okay? And so they use it to target people who want to come back to the practice of law. And anyway, let's see. Every lawyer is responsible for observance of the rules of professional conduct. Yes, but you have to follow the rules, but this is nowhere in the rules. Nowhere. A lawyer should also aid in securing the observance by other lawyers. Okay, if I know that another lawyer has breached a rule, I will turn him into the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel, where it belongs. Not to some unlicensed bandits in an office in Jefferson City, self-appointed, to regulate some process that they decide is necessary, that doesn't allow anybody to defend themselves, which is exactly what the Client Security Fund is. By the way, it's also the same way that they appoint judges in the state of Missouri. They're identical. They're bullshit. Neglect of these responsibilities compromises the independence of the profession and the public interest that it serves. Right. I agree. But it doesn't give you the right to investigate it. The only one who can investigate such dishonest and fraudulent activities is the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel, not the Missouri Bar outside of that. Right? If you're fraudulent or dishonest, there's an investigatory group for that. And it's not the Client Security Fund. Okay? In addition, in many situations, the Client Security Fund serves as the only potential source of financial assistance to clients. What about fee dispute resolution? Because you're not allowed to use this procedure for fee disputes. Those people who owed me $20,000 and paid me $24,000 over 3-4 years, that was clearly a fee dispute. Nobody took their money. I earned it long ago over this long road, and they still owed me money that I had already earned, never made a complaint while paying me. They only decided afterward that they wanted their money back. And they lied to get it. Okay? And the same thing goes with a pair of guys who had a little business thing going on with me, business case that we were fighting that had to do, and they had lost some business-wise, and I was charging them $30,000. I had worked lots of work for them over at least a year that I already done, and they owed me still, I remember, $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 maybe, that they still owed me. But they too were given all this money back because somebody sent them a letter and said, here's how we get more money. And a lot of it was Angela Sylvie telling them to do it because they wouldn't or couldn't pay her a new retainer. It'd be interesting to go through and see how many of those Angela Sylvie convinced to file and helped the Client Security Fund target me or sent people to the fund because she knew that they would get the money back from the fund and then give it to her to hire her to continue the work that I was doing before I left, and turned over the cases to her and said, you should earn the money this way. I guarantee you that there are cases of that. When you look at, she's a little criminal too. Don't ever elect her as a judge. She's a crook. And her husband's a thief too, because he took my painting. I know he's got it. And let's see. Then it goes talking about the history of how it turned into fact. I'm not really interested in that. Let's talk about how it functions. Okay, here's how it works. In Missouri, a 6-member client security fund committee appointed by, not the Supreme Court, the Board of Governors of the Missouri Bar, who are all a bunch of self-appointed, politically appointed glad-handers that love each other, and love being in charge of something. So that's what they are. It's not people who aren't interested in power. Let's put it that way. They hold hearings. They call them hearings. A hearing is not one side speaking, not one side telling a complaint. That is not a hearing, but they call it a hearing. They hold hearings on claims submitted by clients who have been financially harmed by wrongful conduct of their attorneys. Not who they allege were financially harmed, that have been financially harmed. So the only people who can make complaint are people who have been financially harmed by their attorney. Okay? There are restrictions on the types of claims eligible for consideration. For example, the client security fund cannot authorize compensation for a fee dispute. There is a separate Missouri Bar fee dispute resolution program available for that. So if you have a dispute, and I had several of these over the years where I would tell people, look, if you disagree with my fee, there's a fee dispute resolution committee. You want to take it there? I certainly understand. Here's how you get a hold of them, and we will have a mediation up there, and we'll both be able to put on our sides, and there's a mediator in the middle, and this is how it works, and blah, blah, blah. But I'd never heard of this client security fund, and nobody alleged that I'd fraudulently stolen their money. The only way you can get here is you have to allege that I was fraudulent or dishonest, stole your money, okay? And but it's not for fee disputes. And all of mine, or the vast majority, were fee disputes. Anybody who says I took money from them, I should have the opportunity, fraudulently, I should have the opportunity to defend myself against such slanderous words. That's what I say. Because it's slander for them to come in and say that. I thought about filing suit against each one of these and saying that they had slandered me, my reputation, and the Missouri Bar for hearing it, and see if I could get a judge to hear it, but that'll never happen in the state of Missouri. Missouri Bar is too powerful. I tried it on the federal side, but that guy was a yahoo too, and you're in a bad position. You either have to go with the system and against the lawyer. It's easier for one lawyer to be screwed than to say that the whole system is corrupt like I allege. And so they can't. Just like I said, nobody in the Judiciary Committee on the legislative side would help, lawyers included. Nobody in the governor's office they all point you straight to the Supreme Court because they know that you can't really do anything about it. So me talking about this isn't going to help anything either unless people actually listen to it and somebody does something. But lawyers should be aware of this. If you're not, you should be. And maybe you're one of those type of lawyers who wants to be a member of this committee. Go get on it. Have fun. Let's see. They also cannot hear cases of malpractice. Rather, the attorney in question has to be disbarred, suspended, deceased, or mentally incapacitated before a claim can be considered. What does that have to do with the first sentence? Nothing. So it can't be a fee dispute. Then they jump right into, no, this person has to be, or it can't be dispute or malpractice. Rather, the attorney, instead, rather means instead, the attorney in question must be disbarred, suspended, deceased, or mentally incapacitated before a claim can be considered. What makes it something of dishonesty or fraud because somebody is dead, incapacitated, or suspended? How does a fee dispute or a malpractice case, which you can't hear, matter? So could you can, in order to get money back from a dead guy, you still got to allege that the guy frauded or fraudulently or dishonestly took your money, right? You still got to show that. But he can't defend himself either because he's dead. Wouldn't his family be interested in knowing that you're out there calling him a dishonest fraud if he's dead? I mean, geez, let's trample on a man's grave. Let's trample on a guy who's incapacitated and obviously not going to maybe not going to come back into his mental capacity. Let's do that. What a shitty organization. And these people think they're doing the right thing? Yeah. Let's see if you want it to happen to your father when he's dead and will happen to practice law. Nonsense. The client security fund is there to take care of someone when the attorney has done something more than simple negligence. He explained. This is that idiot, Scott Robbins. For example, if I miss a statute of limitations in filing a lawsuit for my client, I expect the client to be upset and I expect the client to pursue it, including filing a claim against my malpractice insurance. Well, gee, that's nice. But malpractice insurance does not cover, this is important, according to Scott Robbins, the moron, intentional acts involving stealing from a client. So we only protect people against clients who've stolen from them, he says. But he's the sole arbiter of whether or not a fee dispute really is theft or not, or dishonesty. All by himself. Even in the fee dispute resolution committee, there's a former judge, a mediator, a negotiator, a lawyer that sits with both sides and goes through both sides. Both sides are there. Both sides have a right to be represented. They rarely are, because you can go and sit with this mediator who helps them resolve their disputes. Every single one of mine was of that nature. None of them alleged that I stole anything from them before. And if they had, they'd have known where to go to the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel. The Client Security Fund compensates clients for wrongful or dishonest conduct by attorney for which no other practical remedy is available. Well, that's not true. If you're dishonest or fraudulently took it, you can sue the guy. Nobody says you can't sue the guy who took your money. In any other profession, if a broker dishonestly or fraudulently takes your money, you sue him. He could have a ethics violation alleged against him in the state of Missouri, just like they do for the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel. We have these processes for lawyers too. What they don't have in other professions is some group of unauthorized people that get to create their own procedure, create their own process, and dictate what another lawyer is going to be required to pay, whether he wants to or not. They get to say that without the lawyer being allowed to participate at all. So the lawyer has no authority, okay? So let us continue. In addition, Robbins said, the committee and Missouri bar staff, well, this is where he claims, we don't have enough time to hear all of these cases of malpractice. Well, gee, that's nice of you. You'll only hear it against people that you decide unilaterally have dishonestly or fraudulently taken money from their clients. Right, Robbins? Maybe you should join me on the show and explain how I'm wrong. Except, it's easy to give an article to some guy when you're only given one lopsided point of view. Somebody ought to question you, because obviously you think that it'd be okay to hand me, I tell you what, Scott, at any time, you can give me the list of your clients for the class 3-4 years. I'll send them a letter. Say, hey, we got a pot of money, and I'm in charge of it, and I'm going to give you some money if I solely determine that your attorney, and by the way, your attorney doesn't get to show up. He doesn't get to say a word about it. He doesn't get to represent himself. Nothing. And if he hears about it, he might be able to provide some documentation of the case against you. But if he doesn't hear about it, that's no big deal. We can proceed without him, and most of the time we do. So send whatever it is you got, whatever request you have to make. If you convince me, I'm going to give you some money. Okay. That's how the process works, Scott. And I'd like to hear you say something different, because it's not. And good luck to you. Come join me on my show. You won't, but please come join me. Have somebody with some stones come and see me, okay? Because none of you would show up here and dispute this. Okay? Let's do it. I want to do it. even to my own personal detriment. You want to bring the files? Talk about every single one of them? Let's do that. You won't. Bring every file that you've paid out in the last several years. I wonder if I could freedom of information all of those things and see what you've done to people while I tear apart this fund piece by piece. And all of you criminals who think this is the way that it's supposed to be, including the Supreme Court of Missouri. You know, I wrote a letter to that, who's our state senator there? I dislike him. I think he's a glad-handed fool that is only trying to become president of the United States. I've always thought that. But, I was willing to give him a chance. But I don't think so. And what the hell is his name? They're always showing him on TV. And they're always showing him. And he's our state senator right now. And you see Josh Hawley. You always see his stuff everywhere. There were signs on him against the road, Hawley, you're a traitor, and blah, blah, blah. State of Missouri. I don't feel that way. I don't give a crap. But I sent him a letter outlining all this, and that guy's a lawyer. He didn't even respond. No response, not a word. And I sent him something saying, hey, you think you could do it? I also sent one. I got a nice letter from the Texas State Senator, was he a rep or senator? Ted Cruz. Ted answered back. And he said that's something that you need to address to the only to the Supreme Court of Missouri, Supreme Court of the United States, even though he was either the chair of the judiciary or something like that. I wanted him to look at it. But he sent a nice letter back at least and outlined what the scoop was or what he thought. And, at least he answered. Polly, not a friggin' word. And he won't. I mean, geez, he's too locked into the Republican BS machine, which is just as big as the Democrat BS machine, especially in Missouri. They're identical. It's just the uniparty is alive and well in the Missouri bar and everywhere else in Missouri. Missouri. You know why Oklahoma is so windy? Because Missouri really sucks governmentally. I mean, that's a funny joke, huh? You say that all the time. Let's see. The Client Security Fund may recommend reimbursement of a claim in full or in part, or may recommend denial or dismissal of a claim. Solely, there's no legal procedure, may or may not. The committee recommendations are forwarded to the Board of Governors for review. The board retains full discretion to pay or not pay any claim. During 2010, the Board of Governors approved the committee's recommendation for payment of 74 claims for a total of $185,000. The board also approved denial of 22. So you got a 75% chance of getting your money if you file a complaint and allege something to these yahoos. We're just going to pay out money. We're, these guys who get to sit around and pass judgment on other attorneys outside of their presence. Oh, they're the good guys, right? They're totally the good guys. We're just doing the world a favor. That's all. We've taken the authority on ourselves to do us a favor. To help ensure the solvency of the funds, many states have caps on the amount to be paid. In Missouri, the cap is $50,000 per single claim, so that a single large claim does not bankrupt the fund. Also, to reduce the cumulative impact on the fund from multiple claims, Missouri can only pay 80%, or Missouri only pays, they make their own rules, so they can change this anytime, 80% of the loss over $2,500. However, unlike some states, Missouri does not cap the total amount paid on a claim involving a single lawyer. So you can make as many claims as you want, and if we can send letters out there, buddy boy, we can encourage so that some lawyers have a huge amount to overcome if they ever come back to the practice of law. They're no longer incapacitated. They can't resurrect themselves if they're dead. But the only way they can defend against being called dishonest and fraudulent is to pay the piper, pay the money, and then. But by the way, we'll still say you fraudulently and dishonestly took money from the client, but you made good on it, so it's okay. It's not a fee dispute. It's not a lawsuit. It's nothing like that. Tell me you can't sue your lawyer if you think he stole your money. Tell me that a judge wouldn't gladly go against any attorney who stole money from a client fraudulently or dishonestly. We have procedures for that. It's called the lawsuit. It's called court. Especially if you have a contract. None of these people submitted the contracts that they had with me, nor the multiple bills that I sent them for payment. Nothing. And the claims were very empty of the contracts. And how are you, Missouri Bar, acting in contravention of my contract with my client and not having a hearing on it or requiring it? You're deciding in contravention of my contract how they have to come after me if they disagree with my fee. So many questions that would never occur. It's not going to occur with a dead guy. 90% of the time, it's not going to occur with an incapacitated person unless he's in his coma for 2 years and then comes back, and then has to deal with this sort of thing. But it happens frequently with people who have been suspended. This is a bullshit process. That's all there is to it. And you know it, or you're not even a reasonably good attorney. And the proof is in the pudding. Let me have your records for the last 3 years. Every client, let me send letters. Let me run that fund. Or a separate fund. Maybe I'll create my own fund. And this fund is to pay against lawyers. I will create this fund. And I will determine, after I get all of your records on this particular claimant, I will determine. Then if you allow that, then I'd say that you're a noble person and you have nothing to fear. Okay? Nothing to fear against a guy like me. I'd be straight up. I'd let them have their say. You're not allowed to participate, and don't think you get to bring an attorney, and don't think you get to cross-examine my my complainant, and don't think you get to appeal my decision, because you don't. If you will agree to that, then I'll come out and say that your process is certainly ethical and very well put together, but it isn't, and I'm disgusted that lawyers think this is the way to destroy other attorneys without them being allowed to. It's depressing to me that our country is in such a state, that judiciary is so corrupt. You watch the antics against Trump. You watch how people you're supposed to trust, people you're supposed to think highly of, people who have a law degree. We have a duty, right? We have a duty. It's in your article. We have a duty to call out those who are doing things bad against other attorneys. I have a jurisprudence doctorate. I had a license. I'm still a licensed attorney. My license is just suspended, right? I'm not disbarred. And I would be disbarred had I stolen from all of my clients. They would have disbarred me. They'd have jailed me like they do so many others. But those people, after they get out of jail, they get to come back to the practice of law. If you guys haven't sent out letters to all of their clients, you only do that to selective people that you don't want to come back. Or Sam Phillips does on your behalf. Sends out letters to all, or Angela Sylvie and her husband do that for you and send out all these letters. Don't you question where they come from? Don't you think a person has a right to defend himself? Obviously, you do not. That is not important to you, which means you ain't a lawyer. You are not a lawyer if you're not willing to protect the least of these other people. Bad lawyer, good lawyer, whatever. He ought to be able to defend himself. Number one, let him defend himself. This is BS, and all of you know it. Okay? Let's see. Then they go into the most egregious blah, 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 blah. Here's what they have done in past, right? The most egregious situation in recent years, this is back in 2010, 11, involved a criminal defense law firm that, through its website, successfully recruited a high volume of clients seeking post-conviction relief, many of whom were incarcerated. The firm did little or no work for the clients. Who are they to decide this, by the way? If you did this would be an ethical violation, right? They did no work for the clients. Where to go? Although the Client Security Fund was able to provide partial monetary compensation to many of the injured clients, the funds could not assist the clients in restoring any right to post-conviction relief they may have lost as a result of the lawyer's misconduct. Again, who are you to make this determination? Should that not have been determined by somebody with the authority of a court? Don't you think? Were they given the right to come in and say, hey, that we filed the post-conviction, or hey, they didn't pay us the full fee and we said the full, maybe there are defenses here. You don't get to hear about them because the lawyer wasn't given the right to defend himself. This we know. He probably lost his license and they did the exact same thing to him. Sent out letters, attracted all the people that received it. Here's one story that I used to explain to other attorneys here in Poplar Bluff. Now, why would he have to explain this to other attorneys in Poplar Bluff? Because a lot of these guys are going to go, what in the hell are you doing as part of this fund, Scott? What the heck? What is this? We haven't even heard of it. What is this fund that you're on? And here's what he says to say how good he is. I'm one of the good guys, folks. I even got them to write a story about how good I am. You're an a-hole who doesn't defend, who doesn't believe in a fair playing field, not remotely. Here's his story. They ask why he's involved with the fund. Wonder why you got to answer those questions. In this particular case, the attorney agreed to represent a client in workers' compensation claim. The attorney negotiated a settlement, forged the client's name to the compromise stipulation, filed those documents with the Division of Workers' Comp, accepted the client's check, forged the client's name on the check, and pocketed the funds, all while telling the client the case was still ongoing. And the attorney had done so with more than one client. So sue him. So tell these people to sue him and get the money back, okay? Or go through a legitimate process with the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel, which they probably did, and say, go through and at the end, have the authority to tell for the Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel to tell the bar, to tell the fund, look, we've investigated, the Supreme Court has ruled, there's a thing that this has occurred, and this dude has to pay it back, but there's no procedure here. Just one guy, Scott, and whatever his counterparts are, sitting in there judging who gets to pay or who gets to receive money and who doesn't. Nonsense. And where do they get this authority? Okay? Oh. And then this guy turned himself in, and he subjected himself to this sort of, the lawyer turned himself in. And this goes on of how it is. Now, in conclusion, while proud of the role, you shouldn't be, while proud of the role the security fund plays in at least partially compensating clients for the harm done by their lawyers. Again, you get to decide the harm done. Robbins recognizes constraints. Many of the different bar organizations around the nation have staff that deal with nothing but client security issues. In fact, some states that are a little larger in terms of lawyers, Ohio and Pennsylvania, have full-time staff, and their funds are in the millions of dollars. Some of them have websites devoted to client protection and security, but they also have procedures that are granted by statute, regulation, or court rule. Not so in Missouri, friends and neighbors. This is a self-appointed fund. If this was a fund that was set up, you could complain about it. You could ask the court to rule on it. You could do something. Not so in Missouri, because this is this is a non-governmental organization, okay? Indeed, and he recognizes this, indeed, the Missouri Bar Client Security Fund often walks a fine line between the profession's desire to make right the harm done to clients. You would think he's going to say after this, and the rights of a lawyer to say, I didn't do that. But no, and the limited resources available to it. Meaning here he's asking for more money. And they did get more money after this, lots more. So they get to now unilaterally decide who the bad guys are. And after my case, they get to do it even worse. So the legal profession is completely upside down. It's completely corrupt. Completely, especially in Missouri. Most other states, at least it's codified somehow. At least it's statute or regulation or court rule. Not in Missouri. Historically, there seems to have been a conflict between we want to do this really good and worthwhile service, attempting to make clients whole when their attorney has stolen money from them. This is when it's used. Versus, we don't want to be this free-for-all with the committee having to wade through mountains of claims that may or may not be meritorious. You're the one who signed up for this. Don't you think you have a duty to find out that there may or may not be meritorious? And don't you think the lawyer that is argued against or complained against in this case would also have an interest in proving that he didn't steal? Don't you think so? When you're giving money back for stolen funds of a client? God, you guys are morons if you believe that this fund is helpful. You believe. I realize that a lot of lawyers think that maybe the greater good should take down, maybe it takes down one good guy, in Sam's case, or many others. God knows how many you've done this to, or how. Maybe we should get that information. Maybe you'd like to come on here and dispute it with me. Nobody's for you. If you don't have any procedures that are codified, legislated, or put in by court rule. And you got none. And you know it. So let's talk about that. As Missouri licensed attorneys, this is again Robbins, we like to complain at times about the overall perception of the legal profession. This is what gives you the bad vibe, is screwing people. You intentionally, it's okay to screw your own because we're lawyers. We're supposed to screw our own. We get to pick who the good guys are and bad guys, right, Scott? Right. We hear the lawyer jokes and the overall general negative perception. So we try to combat that in our own individual practices. You know how I do it? I join in. Want to hear a joke? This is my favorite lawyer joke. Well, aside from the easy one, what do you call 10,000 lawyers chained to the bottom of the ocean? A good start, right? Mark Twain, begin with all the lawyers and start by killing all the lawyers. But this one's my favorite joke. Okay, so lawyer goes up the pearly gates, gets to the pearly gates, there's St. Peter, going through his list, looks at the list and goes, "Sorry, sir, you're not on the list." "Well, crap, I should be on the list." He goes, "Well, you're not." He goes, "Well, okay, check it again." He checks again. "Sorry, sir, you're not on the list." "Man, I only screwed around on my wife, I don't know, a couple handfuls of times, only screwed over this many clients. I can't believe I'm not." "Check again." And he checked. "In general, I'm a good guy." So he checks. He goes, "Sorry, sir, you're not." "Well, surely there's some kind of appeal way." The guy goes, "Yes, fill out these forms," St. Peter says. "Fill out the forms, leave them here, but you have to wait in hell in the meantime." He goes, "Well, geez, how long am I going to be waiting down there while you get to my case?" He goes, "Well, the last guys took about 17, 18 years. He goes, "Jesus, why does it take so long?" St. Peter goes, "Well, truth is, there aren't a lot of judges up here." That's the joke. Anyway, that's my favorite lawyer joke. But that's the Client Security Fund allows us to have a really good, positive example of something that lawyers do, something that I'm not aware that a lot of other professions do, because they don't have the right to, by the way, and neither do you, which is to try and correct a wrong when one member has done something that others consider improper. And you're the sole arbiter of that, right? You and your little cronies that get to sit up there and order in lunch and do all kinds of things like that, yeah? Very odd, Scott. Very odd, Missouri Bar Client Security Fund. Very odd for law firms to get to claim that Samuel Trapp is a criminal without anybody able to dispute it. Nonsensical, and I don't like it. And I think somebody should talk about it. So I hope we do. I'm going to make sure that everyone gets this, that this goes out as many people as I can. My name is Samuel Trapp. You're listening to International Flavor. This show is recorded for Damn Radio for Monday, March the 10th. Please listen to me on Damn Radio. You can follow my podcasts in Russian and in English at International Flavor
podbean.com. It's available on Spotify and all the others, Apple podcasts and things like that. I appreciate you listening to the show. Thank you so very much. All of you have a very nice day and good evening.